Hello everyone, I'm Chris Kapches, President of Chestnut Park Real Estate. Today I'm going to give you your January 2022 market report. I'm going to handle it somewhat differently, highlight what happened in January, but actually speak about what is likely to happen in terms of prices throughout 2022. The highlights of January 2022 are eye-popping, to say the least. The average sale price throughout the Greater Toronto Area came in at almost $1,250,000, which is an incredible number. That broke a record. We had a previous record in November of last year, but this sort of blew the lights out as far as the average sale price. I might add there's over 2,000 condo apartments in that mix that came up with that average sale price. And condo apartments were averaging under $800,000 across the GTA. So that shows you how strong the market was in terms of detached, semi-detached, and townhouse properties to get that number up to almost, as I said, 1,250,000. The other real important highlight is the supply, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as we move through this market report. I looked at some records leading up to this presentation, and going back to 1996, when the population of the Greater Toronto Area was substantially smaller than it is today, we had, going into January, almost 17,000 active listings. If we look at the number of active listings this January, we're around 4,140 odd listings. Quite a substantial decline, almost a quarter of the total listings that were available in 1996. And our population now is starting to approach close to 7 million people in the Greater Toronto Area. So supply is really a problem, and supply is going to be playing a huge role going forward. So total sales this January compared to last January were off, but that's not surprising in the least, because again, it goes back to supply. There was huge demand out there, many transactions where we saw multiple offers, in some cases more than 20 people offering for the same property, but yet at the end of the day we're down 18% in terms of the number of properties that sold this January compared to January of last year. And again, why? All because of supply. There's lots of people out there wanting to buy houses in the Greater Toronto Area. Unfortunately, they're just not enough to satisfy that demand. So with average sale prices at record levels, supply really low, what does the rest of 2022 hold for us in terms of what's going to happen to prices? Already some pundits, some economists are talking about prices coming off in 2022, primarily because of an interest rate hike, which we now anticipate may happen as early as March. Again, driven primarily because of inflation, which is starting to approach close to 5% in Canada. So what is going to happen to sale prices? Well, I'm of the view, and I think the data supports it, that average sale prices are going to continue to rise in 2022. Perhaps not as dramatically as they did in 2021, but they will continue to rise. And there's 4 factors at play that are going to be responsible for that, and maybe even 5. The first one is that the consumer, because of the pandemic and the hoarding of money and inability to spend, is probably financially better off than they were at the beginning of the pandemic. So they're likely not to be as dramatically impacted by any increase in interest rates. Clearly there's going to be some impact, but I believe it will be moderate. Secondly, priorities have changed. People want space. Both interior and exterior space, and that's why we've seen this diaspora out into the suburbs and into the secondary markets. That is going to continue, and that is going to drive prices up as people start seeking these alternative types of living accommodations compared to what they looked for pre the pandemic. Thirdly, and I've already spoken about it, is supply. Supply is at an all-time low, and it doesn't appear like it's going to change anytime soon. The The three levels of government are talking about improving supply, but even if they come to some kind of understanding whereby the kind of Byzantine regulations that cause developers to take a long time to get properties built, whether they get ameliorated so that we can speed the process up, it's still going to be a couple of years before we see supply coming into the market. So in the interim, the pressure is going to be on the consumer, and that pressure is going to result in prices continuing to rise. Fourthly is immigration. There's huge numbers of people immigrating into the Greater Toronto Area. The federal government has set quotas of over 400,000 people for 2021. I'm not quite sure how many people actually met that quota because of the pandemic. For 2022, it's over 400,000 people. For 2023, it's also over 400,000 people. So in a 3-year period, about 1.2 million people are scheduled to come to Canada. The bulk of those people are going to make their way to the large metropolitan areas like Toronto, the GTA, and as a result put even further pressure on that limited supply that I've already spoken about. Fifthly, and this isn't so much an economic factor, but the prevailing view amongst the consumer now is that unless you get into real estate, you're never going to acquire wealth. The way real estate has kind of exponentially increased in value has meant that if you don't get into real estate, it's going to be that much more difficult to get into real estate, and perhaps eventually you won't be able to get into real estate, and therefore psychologically the belief is that you're never going to acquire wealth. If you combine all those factors for 2022, we're going to continue to see the average sale price continue to rise, moderated a little bit by rising interest rates, and we'll have to see to what extent the Bank of Canada does that. But that is the direction that we're going to be going into for the remainder of 2022, and especially the supply side. With supply low, the pressure is on the buyers and the consumer, and that pressure will cause prices to continue to rise for 2022. So stay tuned. We'll be doing the February report and every other report for the rest of the year. If you want some more detail, please check the January market report, which is on our website. And until we do the February report, stay well and stay safe.